Another world is not only possible, she is on her way. On a quiet day, I can hear her breathing.
Thank you so much, Philip. And good morning, everyone. Welcome.
Good morning.
Another world is not only possible, she is on her way. And on a quiet day, I can hear her breathing. And I want to pose to all of us today that not only is she on her way, but she has arrived. And she is in this room. And we are birthing her. So my inquiry is, what are the qualities that we are going to give life to in this day, in our individual and our collective presence? And I also want to pose that we cannot really hear or respond to that inquiry if we are in any states of self-diminishment or self-criticism. And so what are we going to bring to life in this day with our individual and collective presence? Let's take 3 minutes to go quiet and listen together. Thank you so much for your presence here today. My very best to you on this day. Lady Ellen.
Welcome, everybody.
I'm Ellen McCulloch-Lovell, president of Marlborough College, and I'm very, very proud to be co-sponsoring the Slow Living Summit, and I hope most of you have made your way down the hill to the Marlborough College Graduate School for some of the breakout sessions. It is my great pleasure to be introducing our keynote speaker this morning. Christine Bushway has led, as Executive Director and Chief Executive Officer, the Organic Trade Association since 2008. OTA, as it is known, is the membership-based association for the organic industry in North America. Members are those who are engaged in the production, distribution, certification, or promotion of organic products and the services required to produce them. Christine Bushway represents this industry, some would call it a movement, in the policy rooms and decision-making arenas in Washington, D.C., including Congress and the executive branch and the agencies whose policies affect the industry. She opened OTA's first DC office to enhance the visibility and the effectiveness of the industry, and then just last year brought the home office here to Brattleboro, to Vermont, and to the Marlborough College Graduate Center. And we are extremely happy to have her as a new Vermonter, and to know that we're now the headquarters for this very, very important association. She manages the staff in both DC and in Brattleboro, and pays attention to OTA's marketing and public relations, public policy development, and events, which include an annual policy conference and the quarterly board of directors meetings. Of course, she's no stranger to New England. She is a native New Englander and got her undergraduate degree at the University of New Hampshire. I wanted to mention that the organic trade industry itself was given an enormous boost in the mid-90s by Vermont's own U.S. Senator Patrick Leahy. Through legislation that he sponsored, organics were recognized, certified, and it really put the industry on its growth trajectory. Here, straight from her White House meetings, is Christine Bushway.
Thank you, Ellen. That was really nice. We are so thrilled to be here in Brattleboro and at Marlborough College. This is our home base here in Vermont. We do have an office that I work out of on Capitol Hill in Washington. But truth be told, I'm really not a new Vermonter. I was born just up the road in Bellows Falls, Vermont. So I'm an old Vermonter in more ways than one. And I actually grew up just across, we actually moved to New Hampshire when I was 5, so I grew up just across the river and went through high school on the other side of Bellows Falls in North Walpole. So this is home for me, really. So it's great fun. I get to be in Washington, and then I get to come to the real world to get to touch base whenever I need to. So thank you so much, Ellen. We are just thrilled with our location and at Marlborough College. It's a great place for us to be, and I will tell you one of the things that Ellen didn't tell you when she told you about Senator Leahy's tremendous work on making things possible for the organic industry to grow is that she was actually on his staff in Washington during the time that this legislation was being put forth. So she had a part in it. And we really, I must say that Vermont knows they have this incredible individual, really the most senior ranking senator in the Senate, in Senator Leahy. But for the organic industry, he really is our go-to person. And as we were thinking about, we had been housed in Greenfield, Massachusetts for a long time, for 24 years, Dave. And we looked at lots of locations, and you can well imagine that given the economy, the state of Massachusetts was very much interested in us staying in Massachusetts. But we thought about it, and we thought, you know, as we think about it, it makes a whole lot of sense for us to actually be Senator Leahy's constituent. So, so that was one of the many reasons that we chose to come to Vermont, and of course it was the fact that I was born in Vermont that was the primary reason. But so anyway, I would like to just give you a little bit of an overview about the trade association, and tell you that we are a typical trade association in that we are membership based, and we represent about 6,500 individual businesses in 49 states across the nation. It's really interesting, as I'm one of the registered lobbyists for the organization, and when I'm on the Hill, I constantly get asked, so do you represent the big guys or the little guys? And I say yes, because we do. We represent everything from the sole proprietorship individual who is making organic soap in his garage, to the multinational companies, and of course the heart of the organic movement, the organic farmers are critical to us. So we represent actually the whole supply chain, processors, certifiers, suppliers, farmers, distributors, and retailers. So it's everybody, and as I like to say, everything. Unlike a lot of trade associations that are single commodity or single entity trade associations, we represent all of the organic food that is produced in the country, as well as the really rapidly growing organic personal care industries and organic fibers, and the really rapidly growing organic pet food business, which is really astounding. Take a walk down the pet food aisle the next time you're in a Whole Foods or in a pet store, and you'll see the amazing amount of organic pet food that is in demand. Our pets are part of our families, and as such, the consumer wants the best and the longest possible life for their pets. So that's a little bit about us. Ellen had asked me to talk a little bit about the fact that I was at the White House yesterday. This has really been quite a week for me. Not often do you get to go to the White House and do a briefing for the White House, and then to top it off by talking at the Slow Living Summit. So thank you for being here. So this was exciting. A small group of us had an opportunity yesterday to brief the office of Secretary Solis, Hilda Solis, who is the Secretary of Labor, and then the sort of renowned, what our country turns on, the Council of Economic Advisors, and key staff people in the administration. It was a relatively small group, and it's so interesting to hear you, because when I looked at the press release that came out of that event yesterday, it was about how we're changing, how the economy needs to change, and that's sort of what we're talking about here today. And there was one individual, an economist, that was there at the meeting, and we were all a group of what I would term, we weren't big business people. We're the organic industry in terms of how much we represent of the food industry, we're 4% of the food industry. So we're still relatively small in spite of an 8% growth rate. And then there were small groups. There were some other people that literally represented small craft associations and small health organizations. And there was one economist there that finally stood up and said, I have to tell you, I've been here a long time, and I've been to these meetings for 20 years, and this is the most exciting group I have ever met with. This is so exciting because this is what's going to turn our country around, and this is the basis of what's going to be very positive in terms of our economy. Thank you. It was exciting. It was great to get that kind of a response from the administration. And the one thing that these staff people told us, and the secretary said, is that they have been given the president has literally thrown down the gauntlet for them to get out of the White House and get out there and get out to groups such as this and be very visible and hear what's going on and bring it back to the White House so that the White House can respond and know what's really happening in our country. So I told them whenever they would like to meet with a group of organic industry people that we will set up a meeting wherever. So who knows, next year you could have the top administration people speaking at the Slow Living Summit. So it was great. It was a wonderful opportunity that few people get to have, and it was really exciting because I got to share the good news. I think we all know that 2 days ago the economic news was really very discouraging for all of us. The stock market dropped precipitously, and we know that the housing market is just really bad. We still have very high unemployment, and the country's still very much struggling. So when I was able to go in yesterday and tell them that the organic industry is growing at a rate of 8%, they literally said, 8%? How is that possible? So they were, I said I came with good news. So it was a great meeting. So let me give you a little bit of background about the organic industry. Can we have the next slide? I don't know which ones we've got. Okay. So obviously, organic and local are very closely tied, and we as an industry think this is a very, very positive direction for organic. In spite of the fact that there are a lot of big name companies that have gone into the organic industry, the industry is still made up of lots and lots of small businesses and lots of small farmers that really make up the core. So that local is really key. Next slide. This basically is a really great chart to show you what has been happening with the size and the growth. And as you can see, if you follow from 2002, it has definitely been an upward trend in terms of the product sales. We did, in terms of growth, much like the rest of the industry, we did have what we call a falling off the cliff at the height of the recession. But what that meant for us was the industry at that point in time had been growing at a rate of about 22%, and we dropped down to a low of 5%, which people would kill for, frankly. I mean, that's still a really, really positive growth rate. Okay, so next slide. This is really indicative of the penetration. I mentioned earlier that we were, organic products are 4% of the industry and conventional is 96% of the industry. So we are still just a tiny bite of the apple, even though we have a great growth rate. Next slide. This is essentially the category breakdowns for you. It's really interesting to look at where these breakdowns and where this growth comes in. We know that for consumers, generally their entryway into the organic purchases is through fruits and vegetables. We see this particularly in young families. The other area, obviously, is in dairy. We at this point, in terms of dairy, we know that in the next 5 years, for any of you that are interested, we know that we need many, many more dairy farmers to meet the consumer demand for organic dairy products. We've actually had one of our members, one of our major dairy members, tell us that they need a minimum in the next 5 years. They need a minimum of an additional 300 dairy farms to meet the demand that they're forecasting. So that's growing tremendously. You can see there's the beverage category is growing, breads and grains. You will notice that packaged, even condiments, snack foods. You will notice that there isn't a lot of growth or a lot of penetration in terms of meat, poultry, and fish. I will tell you that one of the major problems for growth of the organic meat sector is the fact that there really aren't enough slaughter facilities in the country. So that's a real hindrance. There's a wonderful beef producer, organic beef producer here in the state of Vermont that probably many of you know, and he's got two farms, and he's producing all that he can. Slaughter continues to be an issue for him, but he's supplying all of the Whole Foods through the from here through the Mid-Atlantic area, and they want and need more. So the demand is there right now. The capability is not there. One of the things that the government is working on is more mobile slaughter units, which would be very helpful to people that are interested in getting into meat production, organic meat production. Next slide. This is really this is amazing to me because, as I've said, I think 5 times now, the organic growth rate's 8%, but conventional food growth rate is only at 0.6%. So what this tells you is that this is where the consumer demand is right now. Okay, next slide. Opportunities for farmers and businesses. I think it's really interesting that there are currently 16,000 certified organic operations, but as I just said, you know, we need more to meet demand. For me, when I look at this, it's really important to look at the amount of acres under organic production, and we want to increase that tremendously in this country. The fascinating piece of data here in terms of what the White House was fascinated with is that 78% of farms report planning to maintain or increase organic production over the next 5 years. I think the thing that if I were looking at organic farming, I think the most important thing that I can tell you about that is that, number one, organic farmers are younger than conventional farmers. Their sales are higher. They do have higher production costs, so there is a price differential. We all know that. But they have much higher operating profit. So gross sales for instance, for organic farms is around 218,000 compared to all other farms, which is at about on an average of 135,000. Next. This is the contributions to rural economic livelihood. I can tell you that we just had our policy conference in Washington, and Secretary Vilsack came and spoke at that. And he talks a lot about the importance of maintaining rural communities and rural livelihoods. In this country now, that amounts to probably somewhere in the vicinity of about 15% of our country. And it's very important that be maintained and that we not lose further ground in that regard. The one thing that he always points out, which I think is fascinating, and I think it speaks volumes about our country, it's unrelated, but he always points this out. He points out the fact that it's only about 15%, but it contributes about 45% of our military people. Very, very interesting to me. So, okay, next slide. This is basically showing you where the concentrations of organic tend to be in the country. It is now a $29 billion industry, and that was as of last year. We are really expecting to be pushing on that $30 billion very, very shortly because of the growth rate. You can see that it tends to, there's more concentration on the two coasts. You can see from the density on this map. Next slide. I have to tell you a funny story about organic in Vermont that those of you that are from Vermont will love. Invariably, I'm in meetings and the discussion always comes up, well, where's the bulk of organic produced? And always, and it happened just a couple days ago, somebody said, oh, I know, it's Vermont. And, I don't think they've ever been to Vermont, and they've probably never looked at a map. I don't know. But so that, I do have to tell them California's a little bit bigger. It's a little bit bigger. But it's really funny because, Vermont has that cachet, that really wonderful cachet about really being the producer of wonderful food products, and so they just automatically say Vermont's got to be the biggest production state. But according to the 2008 data from USDA, and I know you'll find this interesting that we just have it back to 2008, but it takes a while for these things. But Vermont actually ranked 10th of all the states in the amount of organic farms. And however, it placed 8th in organic sales by states at nearly $73 million. So that's a nice contribution to the state's economy. 23% of Vermont farms are vegetable farms. 23% of the vegetable farms are certified organic, and 20% of Vermont dairy farms are certified organic. I love this one. Vermont's 15,929, not 930, organic maple trees represented half of the 31,340 maple trees managed organically in the United States. That's amazing. That's really amazing. I have to tell you, I was on the Hill for a hearing during the time that the dairy industry was really hitting bottom a couple of years ago, and it was just so sad to be at that hearing and see what was happening to the dairy farms around the country, and how these families were suffering, and the impact, and what they were doing to just try to hang on. As so many of them told me, if they can just get some help from the federal government and last 2 more weeks, it'll make a big difference. But I will tell you that coming back from that recession, the organic dairy farmers came back much faster. Their businesses turned around much faster than conventional. So you do have a lot of conversion to organic going on in your state. Next one. This was great data to share at the White House. The most astounding piece of information that I shared with them was the fact that the organic sector is creating jobs at 4 times the rate of the rest of the business community in the country. So that's just huge. And 96% are planning to maintain or increase employment in 2011. Next. More data on employment. Next. This is a little bit of background on the fact that 3/4 of U.S. families have purchased at least some organic products, and it's broken down. You can see where the growth is. The growth tends to be in the newly organic, the people that are starting to purchase organic. But I think the key thing here is that it's really penetrated almost. Well, it has penetrated 3/4 of the households in the country. Next. This is a comparison from 9 to 10, and you can see that they are dramatically increased. The amount of buying of organic products that consumers have dramatically increased. Next. This is really important, and this goes back to what Ellen was talking about, the importance of the legislation that Senator Leahy spearheaded, because prior to that legislation, the organic industry is what I like to say compared to the Wild Wild West. So, I decide that I'm going to be an organic farmer, and I decide what organic means, and then you decide that you're going to be an organic farmer, and you decide, and you're in one state, and I'm in another state, and you're in another state, and everybody's making up the rules as they go along. So if you think the consumer is confused today, back then it was really very much a confusing situation, and there was a great amount of distrust of what is organic and what does it deliver to the consumer. So now we know that the trust, because of the National Organic Program, which is housed at USDA, we like to say it's USDA's one brand, because you've seen the seal, the organic seal. That is what makes the consumer trust that the product has to go through strict certification process, third-party certification, to guarantee that it delivers all that it's supposed to deliver. No pesticides, no antibiotics, no GMOs. Follows very strict animal welfare guidelines, and on and on and on. So trust is important to the continued growth. Next. Know your farmer, know your food. We think this is a great initiative from USDA. We think it's really important. I can tell you that I have worked in agriculture more years than I care to remember, but over 30. And many years ago, when I would speak to groups, whether they were consumer groups or whoever they were, did a lot of work with the media, people would just say to me, I don't really worry about my food, about the production of my food or anything like that, because I get my food at the grocery store. So that was always astounding to me, but I think that today, between a lot of things, I think we're starting to get the connection between our health and what we eat, and what we as individuals can do to contribute to our own well-being. And I think the First Lady's initiative on Let's Move, and all the emphasis, her garden at the White House, and all the emphasis that she has put on good health, and trying to do something about our continued burgeoning obesity problem in this country, and the impact on our health and the health of our nation, because we all pay for that one way or another through expensive health care or end-of-life issues for people. So I think that Know Your Farmer, Know Your Food is a real indication that people are getting that connection. So it is a concern, not just from the standpoint of our own longevity, but also we all have to look today at the economic impact of not knowing your food. Okay. This is this is just a breakdown of, and shows you the increase of the number of operating farmers markets, which we all know is just skyrocketing, and that's wonderful, because it really is part of this connection. People want to know where their food has come from. They want to know how it's produced. They want to understand it. And they want to for a lot of reasons, not the least of which is food safety. People are really concerned. The headlines have been ominous at times. They are currently, there's currently a huge European outbreak of E. coli, which has killed a number of people, being looked at from possibly cucumbers as a source, lettuce. So it's a real concern, and people they really like the fact that they know the people that are producing their food, and that's really contributed tremendously to the growth in farmers markets. Next. What else has contributed to the growth of the organic industry? I think that there's a number of things. There's a lot of research that has absolutely, I might add, nothing to do with the industry. These are independent researchers that take this research on their own. And we had, in May of 2010, a publication called the President's Cancer Panel, which is regularly done by physicians that are named by the president to look at what's happening with cancer in our country. Astoundingly, in this country, we have a 41% cancer rate in this country, which means 41% of us get cancer at some point in our life. That's a really high rate. And why does that happen? If you can't sleep and you really want to delve into this, you can get this publication, the President's Cancer Panel, and curl up with it. And it's a big publication, but I can give you the executive summary on that right now and tell you that they really strongly advised people to reduce their exposure to environmental chemicals and pesticides. So, you know, that was kind of like, I call it sort of a self-help proclamation from these physicians, saying avoid pesticides, and that will help to reduce your potential for cancer. So that was really a landmark thing for the Cancer Panel to put out there. Next one. This is a scary one, and this is something that we've been following for some time. I actually moderated a panel in Boston last fall with 3 researchers, one from Harvard, one from Stanford, and I forget where the other one was from, but they were all doing research on pesticide exposure. And their findings basically were that pesticide exposure for young children and for fetal development, there was a direct link between pesticide exposure and cognitive development. So we even saw headlines that said, you know, increased pesticides, lower IQs. Now, we obviously, you know, basically said, this is frightening, this is scary. They aren't nearly as safe as people would lead us to believe. So there's a raft of information out there, and more has just come out in the last couple weeks about these studies, that there really is a direct link between pesticides and impact on brain development in children. So I think that's very significant. Again, I want to point out the industry itself had absolutely nothing to do in terms of support for these researchers or even asking them to do the research. So I think it's a really hands-off type of research. All we've done is applauded the fact that they're working on this. Next. Okay. I want to see which one this one is. Okay, this is basically more of the same. We have seen that we've seen and also been visited by You know, whenever I do a talk like this, somebody invariably accuses me of putting down conventional agriculture, which is not my intent. I worked for years in conventional agriculture. I think it's just a matter of being informed and knowing what the implications are. So there has been a group that has been formed in the last 6 or 7 months to essentially put out information that is contrary to the research that I just talked about, and basically saying that pesticides are not a concern, that there has been not really a unequivocal link formed between pesticides and impact from either a cognitive development standpoint or a carcinogen standpoint or a harm in any way. So I think they're very concerned, and rightly so. So that's what this is about. It's the group that is working on the opposite of this research. Okay, next slide. Spraying GMOs. We, as an industry, GMOs are not allowed in organic production, which I'm sure you know. So that becomes an ongoing battle because the really big agribusiness companies such as Monsanto have very deep pockets. And as they have continued to grow and infiltrate agriculture across the country and across the world, they bump up against our production. And when that happens, then we are at risk for contamination from GMOs. So we guarantee our consumer that they are buying GMO-free products. So when they're not buying GMO-free products because our product has been contaminated, who pays for that? Our organic farmers are at a loss at that point in time. So it continues to be a huge ongoing battle. We have been, of late, very, very involved in this issue. Since last summer, we have been very involved working with the Department of Agriculture, who has continued to deregulate GMOs so that they can plant more or use more, whether it's GE alfalfa or sugar beets or whatever. There's about 22 more GMO products in the pipeline ready for deregulation, which again is a real threat to the organic industry and the people that are farming organically. Next. I'm going to fly through this so that we have some time to talk, but this is anybody that wants to talk about it further. This is the GE situation. We worked hard on this one. Go ahead for the next one. The big thing that the consumer wants is labeling, because it's impossible to tell that GMOs are in your food because there is no labeling of GMOs in your food. The biotech industry clearly is fighting that battle and is against that because that would be detrimental to their sales. So we're working on that and hoping, but I can tell you that that's been a 15-year battle at this point. So one of the things that did come up in the questioning of my presentation at the White House yesterday was I was asked if, by the White House, if I felt that more transparency would be helpful. So you can't sit there and go, duh, when you're at the White House, but I said, yes, we would love to see more transparency. Okay, what else have we got? Okay, I'm going to zip through this. Prince Charles left the wedding and came to the White House to push for organic food. Next, for everyone that's concerned about organic food costing too much, go to our It's Worth It website, go to our Savvy Shopper, and you will see that in many, many cases, there's very, very reasonable priced and similarly priced organic products compared to conventional. That's it, organic, it's worth it. Next one. We're done. Before I take any questions, or are we out of time? Did I talk too long?
I think we should keep hearing that.
Okay, I just want to tell you one thing. That tomorrow, for those of you that are going to be at the strolling of the heifers, I'm counting on you being there for me, because I'm going to be in a milking contest against Senator Bernie Sanders. And you're not going to believe what I had to do. I had to go out to one of our farms and spend a day out there milking to get ready for this. So Dave Gagnon from our staff here, from our office, said, you're very competitive. I don't know, you might want to take this one on the chin and let him win. I said, let him win? Are you kidding?
Data, and you raised some provocative issues. I'm sure there are questions, and I'd like the organizers' permission to go to 10 after.
Okay, go for it.
Since we started late. And if you would, because we don't have mics out there, if you would stand and say your question, and then if I need to, I'll repeat it for the rest of you. Okay? You had your hand up first, right there.
What I'm really curious about, are supermarkets being very comfortable and expansive about including organics? Or are they still very hesitant?
Did everybody hear the question? Okay, so we'll do the... Are supermarkets including or being open to organics, or are they keeping them out?
Thank you. All I can say is thank you, because, and I didn't plant that. I don't know you, do I?
No.
No, I didn't plant that. They really are. You know why? They want to make money. So supermarkets are absolutely gung-ho. I'll give you an example. Obviously, Whole Foods, those types of things, Trader Joe's, they've been around forever. They're big organic. But I'll give you a wonderful example is Safeway. And Safeway has their own brand, the O Organic brand. And you cannot go down any aisle in that supermarket without finding all kinds of terrific organic buys comparable the O brand. We are talking right now, we're doing the presentation for Kroger, the biggest supermarket chain in the country. They know, when you look at those statistics, and on conventional you've got 0.6 growth, and then you look at, they're not stupid. The answer is yes.
Good.
Thanks.
Yes, yes, right there in the middle.
You noted that the cancer rate in the United States is 41%. I'm wondering, do you know how we compare to other countries? Are we at the high end?
How does the U.S. cancer rate compare to other countries? Are we at the high end?
I don't know the answer to that. I think, this person does. Wonderful. Can you tell us?
Well, all you have to do is read Colin Campbell's monumental study called the China Study, which is really a cancer study. And he's got all the charts from all the research in the world. I believe we're way up at the top.
I think we're up. I knew we were up there.
Yeah, and in conjunction with that, it's good. Calvin Campbell pointed out he's called the Dean of Epidemiology at Cornell University. And the study was done because it referred to the China Study of cancer. We studied over 300 million people in China, plus worldwide study. But he said, and this is also the second question I wanted, has the organic food industry confronted, some of the other sources, not only pesticides, but what Colin Campbell says, he said that the overconsumption of meats and caseins, which are the milk products, feeds the cancer cells. That's the greatest food in the world for the cancer cells. And the cultures like the Mediterranean diet or the Asian have the least cancer, and the Italians have the highest longevity rate in the world, by the way. They're presently not going to have it long.
And so
So what's that factor, and how's the organic industry addressing that?
Very quick summary. The speaker is directing you to Colin Campbell's research, the China study. The China study.
It's a book.
Showing very high cancer rates in the U.S. and asking Christine about whether meat and dairy high meat and dairy consumption feeds the cancer.
Well, here's the first. To answer your question, the situation really is, I must tell you, in spite of all of what we're telling you here, and it looks like we as an organization have, are very well funded. The fact of the matter is that we have very little money. We don't have money for research, which is why, I wish I could stand here and tell you, we paid for this research and that's why they're saying this, because that would mean that we had money to do it. But we really don't do that because we don't have the resources to do it. But I think that one really interesting thing about what you're saying happened yesterday. And we've all followed the food pyramid, as we all know. And yesterday we had this huge change in our country, and we've now gone to the plate. And if you look at the plate and how it's broken down, half of the plate your plate is now supposed to be fruits and vegetables. And just a small portion, like a quarter of the plate, is supposed to be your protein source. So.
Lisa, you had a question?
Lisa?
Yeah, I just see the government like this and the people like this. I just see this huge divide. I mean, you spoke about pesticide exposure for fetal development and young children, lower IQ, impaired reasoning, and memory, and yet 96% of the food that we're eating is contributing to that. And the government is actually supporting that system of growing food through Vilsack approving of GMO alfalfa, which is going to destroy the milk industry because cows eat alfalfa. Hello, then you don't have organic milk anymore. I mean, it's just the lobbying that goes on behind Monsanto to push their products and destroy the organic industry somehow has to be undermined by the USDA. They've got to put their actions behind the research that shows what's happening to our children. It's just despicable.
I know there was a question in there somewhere, but I think there was a passionate statement about the...
But what about that disconnect? What do we do with Secretary Vilsack? What do we do with Obama's knowing this research but like ignoring...
All right, so what do we do about the divide between what you've presented and government policy?
Well, there's a lot there that speaks about our system of government. It's really interesting when you think about, one of the things I must say we have had really incredible access to Secretary Vilsack. I've been in a lot of we had 5 of us from the organic industry were in several meetings with him throughout the fall, and then he did agree to, as I put it, come into the Lion's Den and meet with the people at our policy conference, which were about 130 people from the organic industry. I think that it's really important that we continue to push, and what he says, which is interesting, is that he has 2 sons. And one is the biotech GMO group, which he feels is critical to feeding the world. Now, one of the things I must tell you, I know, you're shaking your heads, I must tell you one of the things that we're up against is that the world population is exploding. The level of food insecurity in the world and people starving is exploding. So, the big push from the Gates Foundation, from Vilsack, from the UN is we have to feed these people. How are we going to feed these people? And so the biotech people run in and say we can increase production. We can do this. We can do that. So we're up against it. And the other thing is that it comes back. Really, sorry to say, but it comes back to money. We're a really small industry. And we're up against enormous amounts of money, and we're up against the system by which we elect our senators and congressmen, who have to spend gobs and gobs of money to stay in office, and it takes those contributions. So it's a tough situation. It absolutely is a very tough situation, and that's why we are boots on the ground every day up there and in their face.
Thank you, Christine. There's a question here. I will get to you. Yeah, please.
Just kind of on that statement of if they're acknowledging that their technology is going to address world hunger and is going to increase vitamin
capacity and production, which I know they can set to some rice. I think we are really proud to label our products as organic, so I would love us to take the argument to them that if they are proud that they're going to feed hungry people with their technology, then they should be proud to label it.
Statement about labeling. If we're labeling organic, we should be labeling GMO and other biotech. Yes, you've been waiting.
Hi. Yesterday, Gary Hirschberg from Stonyfield made a passionate case about how big organic should not be shot at from small organic. And I find myself seeing at the stores I shop in New York City where organic competes with local. So you can have some asparagus that's organic from Mexico and have some asparagus that's coming from the Hudson Valley of New York that's local, and people will grab the Mexican because it's organic. I also just read a story about sugar farming in South Africa, where they are wiping out, apparently 40% organic sugar comes from South Africa, and they are wiping out old growth forests to increase demand in organic sugar. And I wonder how this can be answered, where we don't want organic to compete with local. I totally believe in the case that Gary Hirschberg made yesterday at Stony about the bigness of scale and how he's keeping all the amount of money that's being pumped into organic farmers. But I think that this needs to be addressed, because I see areas where organic is actually competing against the ideals of the sustainable world that we're talking about.
Okay, so we have the question about, I think, large organic competing with local food production, and within the organic industry itself, the competition. I know you've thought a lot about this, Christine.
Way more than I care to mention. But, well, first of all, when you look at the large companies, their products and the ingredients for their products, in order for them to be organic, have to come from smaller entities. They have to come from farms somewhere in order to be organic. So that's support for that. In terms of, there's always there's this ongoing debate about, should big business be involved in organic? And the truth of the matter is, whether you like it or you don't like it, they have to adhere to every single regulation and requirement that the small, certification is certification. So they have to adhere. And secondly, they have helped to bring along the organic industry. They have put products into the marketplace and helped to build this industry. That the small producers would not have the level of sales that they have now were it not for the visibility that these big companies have provided. Part of the issue that we think is really important is choice. Choice in the marketplace. Choice is what this country was founded on. That's why people came to the U.S. for choice. And so I think that when you're standing there confounded in that supermarket, you should be happy that those people that you see have a choice. They have a choice of buying organic, or they have a choice of buying local. Hopefully they're buying local organic. But you know what? The fact of the matter is, I did tell you earlier, our supply in this country doesn't meet the demand. So we need more growers.
Thank you, Christine. Doug, I'm going to give you the last question, but make it very short. Short question, short answer, so I can get you on your way to other wonderful sessions.
Good luck. I'm wondering if the Organic Trade Association has a position on the U.S. cheap food policy, and do you see a strategy, or what do you see as being the strategy to hopefully changing the cheap food policy to a quality food policy?
Well, no, okay. The question is, that our country has literally, you know, we have a cheap food policy in this country. And that's really true. And that's something that I personally have wrestled with for a long time. And then that's why we have huge commodity subsidies, because the consumer in this country pays such, if you look at the chart of the percentage of our income that we pay for food compared to what the percentage of income that in other countries that people pay for food, we pay such a small amount of our income for food. So yes, we do have a cheap food policy. And that cheap food policy contributes to a lot of our problems. All of us know that organic food is a little more expensive. Sometimes it's a lot more expensive. But that's because of, as I said, those people producing those products have more overhead. They have more expense. So consequently, it has to get passed along. We, as an organization, do not have a standing policy regarding cheap food, but it is it's going to come to a head, because as this country is facing this budget crunch and what's happening in Congress right now with the cutbacks, for the first time ever, that third rail that nobody dared to touch on commodity subsidies is definitely on the table. So it's going to be addressed.
Please join me in thanking Christine Bushway.